The morning sun cast long shadows across the firing range at Camp Lejeune as Marine Staff Sergeant Sarah Chen adjusted her scope for the third time in 10 minutes. Her breathing was steady, controlled, each exhale timed perfectly with the gentle squeeze of her trigger finger. The target downrange sat at 800 yards, a respectable distance for most marksmen, but for Sarah, it might as well have been sitting on her kitchen table. She had been on the range since 500, 2 hours before the official opening time. The range master knew her routine and had long since stopped questioning why she needed the extra time. Sarah Chen was not like other Marines. At 28, she had already broken 3 corps shooting records and was quietly being considered for transfer to the Scout Sniper program, a path that had only recently opened to female Marines. The M110 semi-automatic sniper system felt comfortable in her hands, like an extension of her body. She had customized every component within regulation standards, from the bipod tension to the trigger pull weight. Her shooting jacket was worn soft from countless hours in prone position, and her shooting gloves had permanent indentations from gripping the rifle. Sarah's path to this moment had been anything but typical. Growing up in rural Montana, she had learned to shoot from her grandfather, a Korean War veteran who believed that precision with a rifle was both an art and a necessity. By age 12, she could consistently hit prairie dogs at 300 yards with her grandfather's old Winchester. By 16, she was winning state-level shooting competitions against adults who had been shooting longer than she had been alive. When she enlisted in the Marine Corps at 18, her recruiters had initially tried to steer her toward logistics or administration. The idea of a small-town girl from Montana becoming a designated marksman seemed far-fetched to them. They changed their tune quickly during basic training at Parris Island, when Sarah posted the highest marksmanship scores the drill instructors had seen in 5 years. Her first deployment to Afghanistan had been with a female engagement team, working alongside infantry units to interact with local women and children in villages where male Marines could not operate effectively. But Sarah's unique skill set quickly became apparent to her commanding officers. While other Marines carried standard M4 carbines, Sarah was often assigned an M14 enhanced battle rifle tasked with providing overwatch and precision fire support during village clearing operations. It was during a particularly tense operation in Helmand Province that Sarah first proved her worth beyond any doubt. Her squad had been pinned down by a Taliban sniper firing from a compound roughly 600 yards away. The enemy marksman had already wounded 2 Marines and was preventing the squad from advancing or retreating. Sarah had identified the muzzle flash from the 3rd shot and calmly set up her M14 behind a low wall. The Taliban sniper fired again, his round striking the wall inches from where Lance Corporal Martinez was taking cover. Sarah controlled her breathing, calculated the wind drift, and fired a single shot. The enemy fire immediately ceased. Later, when the compound was secured, they found the Taliban fighter dead with a single bullet wound to the head. That incident had earned Sarah a Navy Achievement Medal and the attention of her battalion's senior leadership. More importantly, it had earned her the respect of every Marine in her unit. Word spread quickly through the close-knit sniper and designated marksman community. Sarah Chen was not just good, she was exceptional. Now, 3 deployments later, Sarah had returned to Camp Lejeune for what was supposed to be routine training and preparation for her next assignment. The Marine Corps was finally ready to allow female Marines to attempt the grueling Scout Sniper Basic course, and Sarah's name was at the top of the list. She would be part of the first class to include women, a fact that brought both tremendous opportunity and enormous pressure. The pressure was exactly why she was on the range at 0500, perfecting skills that were already beyond most marksmen's capabilities. Sarah knew that every shot would be scrutinized, every miss magnified, every success questioned. She would have to be not just as good as her male counterparts, but better, significantly better. Her current routine involved firing 50 rounds at varying distances from 300 to 1,000 yards, recording every shot's point of impact and analyzing her performance for any inconsistencies. She had been following this regimen for 3 months, and her shooting log showed a level of consistency that would be impressive even for seasoned scout snipers. The range began filling up with other Marines around Oro 700, but Sarah barely noticed. She was in what shooters called the zone, a state of complete focus where nothing existed except the rifle, the target, and the fundamentals of marksmanship. Her breathing was rhythmic, her trigger control was smooth, and her follow-through was textbook perfect. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, the battalion's senior designated marksman instructor, approached Sarah's firing position during a break in her shooting. Rodriguez was old-school Marine Corps, a veteran of multiple deployments who had seen everything and was impressed by very little. He had been watching Sarah's performance with growing interest and something approaching disbelief. "Chen, what's your group size at 800 this morning?" Rodriguez asked, settling into the spotting position next to her. Sarah consulted her data book, a meticulously maintained record of every shot she had fired in the past year. "Average of 1.2 inches, Master Sergeant. Best group was 0.8 inches. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Sub-minute of angle groups at 800 yards were exceptional for any shooter, regardless of experience level. "Show me," he said simply. Sarah loaded 5 rounds into her magazine and settled back into her shooting position. Rodriguez peered through the spotting scope, adjusting the focus for the distance. Sarah's pre-shot routine was methodical and consistent. Check the wind flags, verify her scope settings, control her breathing, find her natural point of aim, and gradually apply pressure to the trigger. The first shot broke clean, and Rodriguez watched the bullet impact through the spotting scope. "Dead center," he called out. The second shot followed 30 seconds later, impacting less than half an inch from the first. The third, fourth, and fifth shots created a neat cluster that could be covered with a quarter. "Jesus, Chen," Rodriguez muttered, more to himself than to Sarah. "Who taught you to shoot like that?" Sarah safed her weapon and looked up from her scope. "My grandfather, Master Sergeant. He always said that if a shot was worth taking, it was worth hitting." Rodriguez had been around the Marine Corps long enough to recognize true talent when he saw it. Sarah Chen was not just gifted. She was once-in-a-generation exceptional. He had seen scout snipers with years of experience who could not match the consistency she was demonstrating. "Chen, I want you to stick around after the range closes today. There's someone I want you to meet." Sarah nodded, already knowing that her carefully planned day was about to change dramatically. In the Marine Corps, when senior NCOs said they wanted you to meet someone, it usually meant your career was about to take an unexpected turn. The rest of the morning passed in routine training exercises. Sarah helped newer Marines with their marksmanship fundamentals, sharing tips on breathing control and trigger technique that she had learned from years of dedicated practice. She had a natural teaching ability, explaining complex concepts in simple terms that even struggling shooters could understand and apply. Lance Corporal Williams, a young Marine who had been having trouble qualifying with his service rifle, approached Sarah during a break. Williams was frustrated and embarrassed, knowing that his inability to shoot accurately was affecting his unit's readiness and his own confidence. "Staff Sergeant Chen, I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong," Williams said, holding his M4 carbine awkwardly. "I can hit the target fine at 200 yards, but anything past that and I'm all over the place." Sarah examined Williams's shooting position and immediately identified several problems. His grip was inconsistent, his cheek weld was too high, and he was jerking the trigger instead of applying steady pressure. "Williams, the rifle is like a precision instrument," Sarah explained patiently. "Every point of contact between you and the weapon has to be exactly the same for every shot. Show me your shooting position." She guided Williams through the fundamentals, making small adjustments to his stance, grip, and sight alignment. After 15 minutes of instruction, Williams was consistently hitting targets at 300 yards, shooting better than he had ever shot before. "How did you learn all this stuff, Staff Sergeant?" Williams asked, genuinely curious about Sarah's background. "Practice," Sarah replied simply. "Thousands and thousands of rounds, and paying attention to what works and what doesn't, and having good teachers who were willing to share what they knew." As the official training day wound down, Sarah remained on the range, cleaning her rifle and organizing her gear. The afternoon sun was starting to cast longer shadows, and most of the other Marines had returned to their barracks or headed to chow. Master Sergeant Rodriguez approached her position, accompanied by a man Sarah had never seen before. The stranger was clearly military, despite wearing civilian clothes. His posture, haircut, and the way he moved all screamed special operations. He was tall, probably 6'2", with the lean, functional muscle of someone who used his body as a tool rather than for show. His eyes constantly scanned the environment, taking in details and assessing potential threats in the way of someone who had operated in dangerous places. "Chen, I'd like you to meet Chief Petty Officer Mike Harrison," Rodriguez said. "Chief Harrison is with Naval Special Warfare Group 2. Sarah immediately understood the significance of the introduction. Naval Special Warfare Group 2 was home to SEAL Team 2, among other units. SEALs did not typically visit Marine Corps firing ranges unless they had a very specific reason. "Pleasure to meet you, Chief," Sarah said, extending her hand. Harrison's grip was firm but not aggressive, the handshake of someone confident in his abilities. "Rodriguez tells me you're quite the shooter," Harrison said, his voice carrying a slight Southern accent. "He also tells me you might be interested in some additional training opportunities." Sarah glanced at Rodriguez, who maintained his typical poker face. "I'm always interested in improving my skills, Chief." Harrison nodded approvingly. "Good attitude. Mind if I watch you shoot a few rounds? I'd like to see what all the fuss is about." Sarah set up her rifle again, this time at 1,000 yards, the maximum distance available on the range. Harrison watched silently as she went through her pre-shot routine, noting the methodical way she prepared for each shot. Through his spotting scope, Rodriguez called out Sarah's impacts as she fired a 5-round group. "First shot, dead center. Second shot, 2 inches right. Third shot, 1 inch left of center. Fourth shot, center. Fifth shot, half-inch high, dead center for windage." Harrison lowered his binoculars and looked at Rodriguez. "What's that group measure?" Rodriguez had already walked down range to check the target. He returned with a measuring device and the target itself. 2¼ inches at 1,000 yards, he announced. "That's just over 2/10 of a minute of angle." Harrison's expression did not change, but Sarah could sense his interest had been captured. Groups under half a minute of angle at 1,000 yards were exceptional by any standard, including those of elite special operations units. "Chen, what do you know about the Scout Sniper program?" Harrison asked. "I've been accepted for the next class, Chief. I'm scheduled to start the indoctrination course in 6 weeks. Harrison exchanged a look with Rodriguez. "How would you feel about some additional preparation before you start that course? Something that might give you an edge when you get there?" Sarah's pulse quickened slightly, though her expression remained neutral. Opportunities like this did not come often in the Marine Corps, and she sensed that her answer could significantly impact her future. "I'm always willing to learn from the best, Chief. What did you have in mind?" Harrison smiled for the first time since arriving at the range. "Pack your gear, Staff Sergeant. You're coming with me." The drive from Camp Lejeune to the undisclosed training facility took 3 hours, winding through back roads that Sarah had never seen before. Chief Harrison had been deliberately vague about their destination, saying only that it was a place where special operations units conducted advanced training away from the scrutiny of conventional forces. The facility, when they finally arrived, looked like nothing special from the outside. A simple gate marked Federal Training Facility, authorized personnel only, guarded what appeared to be several thousand acres of wooded terrain. After Harrison showed his credentials to the gate guards, they were waved through onto a gravel road that disappeared into thick pine forests. "This place doesn't exist on any public maps," Harrison explained as they drove deeper into the facility. "It's where we bring people who need specialized training that can't be conducted at conventional bases. Very few Marines have ever been here." The comment was not lost on Sarah. Whatever was about to happen, it was significant enough to warrant bringing her to a classified training facility. She had packed her personal rifle and shooting gear as instructed, along with enough uniforms and equipment for what Harrison had described as a few days of intensive training. The main compound consisted of several unremarkable buildings surrounded by various training areas. Sarah could see obstacle courses, shooting ranges, and what appeared to be mock urban environments designed for close-quarters combat training. Everything was built to military standards, but without the typical signage and markings found on regular bases. Harrison parked near a building that looked like a combination armory and classroom. "Before we go any further, Chen, I need to explain what you're getting into. This facility is used to evaluate potential candidates for classified programs. Nothing that happens here can be discussed with anyone outside this compound. Are we clear on that?" Sarah nodded. "Crystal clear, Chief." "Good. Because what you're about to experience is going to be unlike anything you've encountered in the regular Marine Corps." Inside the building, Sarah was introduced to a small group of instructors who were clearly from various special operations units. There was Master Chief Ramirez from the SEALs, Sergeant Major Thompson from Delta Force, and Captain Williams from Marine Force Reconnaissance. Each man carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had operated at the highest levels of military service. "Gentlemen, this is Staff Sergeant Chen," Harrison announced. "Rodriguez vouches for her shooting ability, and I've seen enough to be impressed. She's scheduled for Scout Sniper School in 6 weeks, but I think she might benefit from some advanced preparation." Master Chief Ramirez looked Sarah up and down, his expression neutral but appraising. "What's your longest confirmed kill shot, Staff Sergeant?" 840 meters, Master Chief. Taliban sniper in Helmand Province, single shot with an M14 EBR. Sergeant Major Thompson raised an eyebrow. "Conditions?" "High winds, approximately 15 to 20 knots from the east. Target was partially concealed behind a compound wall. I had about 18 inches of exposed target to work with." Captain Williams consulted a file he had been carrying. "I've read the after-action report on that engagement. Impressive work under pressure." Sarah was beginning to understand that her presence here was not accidental. These men had obviously been briefed on her background and performance record in considerable detail. "Chen, what we're going to do over the next few days is push your skills beyond what conventional training provides," Harrison explained. "We're going to test your limits and see how you perform under extreme stress. Some candidates wash out. Others discover capabilities they never knew they had." The first day consisted of extensive shooting exercises at distances far beyond what Sarah had experienced in regular Marine Corps training. Using precision rifles chambered in .300 Winchester Magnum and .338 Lapua Magnum, she engaged targets out to 1,500 meters under various conditions. Wind was simulated using industrial fans, temperature was manipulated using heating and cooling systems, and stress was induced through time constraints and background noise. Sarah performed well, adapting to each new challenge with the methodical approach she had developed over years of dedicated practice. Her shooting groups remained consistently tight, even under adverse conditions, and her ability to read wind and make rapid ballistic calculations impressed even the experienced instructors. On the second day, the training became more complex. Sarah was introduced to advanced ballistic software and environmental monitoring equipment used by elite snipers. She learned to calculate precise firing solutions for extreme-range shots, accounting for factors like air density, Coriolis effect, and ammunition temperature that most marksmen never considered. Master Chief Ramirez worked with her personally on advanced camouflage and concealment techniques. Any fool can hit a target at long range if they have enough time to set up, he explained, while teaching Sarah to construct a hide site that would be invisible even to trained observers. The real skill is hitting that target when the enemy is actively trying to kill you. The concealment training was followed by stalking exercises, where Sarah had to approach observation posts manned by experienced scouts without being detected. These exercises tested not just her fieldcraft skills, but her patience and ability to think several steps ahead. Sarah found this aspect of sniper training particularly challenging, as it required a completely different mindset from precision shooting. On the third day, Chief Harrison introduced Sarah to a weapon she had only seen in pictures and technical manuals. The Barrett-M82A1 50-caliber sniper rifle was a massive weapon, weighing over 30 pounds and capable of engaging targets at ranges exceeding 2,000 meters. Its bullets could penetrate light armor and were devastating against both personnel and equipment. "This is my personal Barrett," Harrison said, running his hand along the rifle's distinctive muzzle brake. "I've carried it on operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, and places I can't mention. It's been modified with a custom trigger, upgraded optics, and a precision barrel that cost more than most people's cars." Sarah examined the weapon with appropriate reverence. She had heard stories about the Barrett's capabilities, but seeing one up close was different. The rifle was intimidating in its size and obvious destructive potential, yet it was also elegantly engineered, a masterpiece of precision manufacturing. "What's the longest shot you've made with it, Chief?" Harrison smiled grimly. 2,200 meters. High-value target in Afghanistan who thought he was safe because of the distance. He was wrong. The Barrett was equipped with a Schmidt and Bender scope, capable of magnifications up to 25 power, along with an advanced range-finding system and ballistic computer. Harrison spent an hour teaching Sarah the weapon's manual of arms, explaining its unique recoil system and the proper techniques for managing its substantial muzzle blast. "The Barrett is not forgiving of mistakes," Harrison cautioned. "Its recoil will amplify any flaws in your shooting fundamentals, and its power means that safety is absolutely critical. But in the right hands, it's the most effective long-range precision weapon in the world." The first shots with the Barrett were eye-opening for Sarah. Even with her extensive shooting experience, the rifle's power and recoil signature were unlike anything she had encountered. The muzzle blast was enormous, creating a pressure wave that could be felt throughout the firing line. The recoil, while managed by the rifle's advanced recoil system, was still substantial enough to require careful attention to body position and follow-through. More challenging was learning to read wind and atmospheric conditions at the extreme ranges where the Barrett was most effective. At 1,800 meters, factors that could be ignored at shorter distances became critical to accuracy. A 5-mile-per-hour wind that might move a bullet 2 inches at 800 meters could move it 18 inches at 1/800 meters. Sarah fired 20 rounds with the Barrett under Harrison's supervision, gradually extending the range from 1,200 to 1,800 meters. Her groups were larger than what she achieved with smaller caliber rifles, but they were respectable for someone firing the weapon for the first time. More importantly, she demonstrated the ability to adapt her shooting technique to manage the Barrett's unique characteristics. "Not bad for a first attempt," Harrison observed, studying Sarah's target through a spotting scope. "Your fundamentals are solid enough to handle the Barrett's power. With more practice, you could become very effective with this system." On the fourth day, the training scenario became more realistic. Sarah was given a detailed mission briefing involving a simulated high-value target elimination at extreme range. The scenario was based on an actual operation that Harrison had conducted in Afghanistan, though the details had been modified for training purposes. The exercise began with Sarah conducting reconnaissance of the target area, which had been set up to replicate a Taliban compound in mountainous terrain. She had to identify the target building, assess the wind conditions, calculate firing solutions for multiple potential shooting positions, and plan her infiltration and exfiltration routes. Using night vision equipment and thermal imaging systems, Sarah spent 12 hours observing the target area and planning her approach. The simulated enemy forces consisted of instructors and role players who moved through the compound on realistic schedules, providing multiple opportunities for target identification and engagement. The shooting position Sarah selected was on a ridge line approximately 1,650 meters from the primary target building. It offered good concealment, multiple escape routes, and clear fields of fire to all potential target locations. Setting up her position took 3 hours, as she carefully constructed a hide that would be invisible to counter-sniper teams. Master Chief Ramirez, acting as her spotter, occupied a secondary position 50 meters away. Communication between them was conducted through hand signals and whispered radio transmissions, maintaining the tactical silence essential for sniper operations. The waiting began at 0400, with the simulated target scheduled to appear sometime between 0800 and 1200. During this period, Sarah had to maintain absolute stillness while keeping continuous observation of the target area. This aspect of sniper training was often more challenging than the actual shooting, requiring mental discipline and physical endurance that many candidates could not sustain. At 0947, the target finally appeared. A role player portraying a high-value Taliban commander emerged from the main building and began walking across the compound's central courtyard. Sarah had approximately 90 seconds before the target would disappear into another building, ending the opportunity for engagement. Sarah quickly confirmed her range estimate using her laser rangefinder, verified her wind reading, and made final adjustments to her scope settings. The Barrett felt familiar now after days of intensive training, and her pre-shot routine was smooth and automatic. The target stopped in the center of the courtyard, providing a stationary target approximately 18 inches wide. Sarah controlled her breathing, settled the crosshairs, and began applying pressure to the trigger. The Barrett fired with its characteristic thunderous report, and through her scope, Sarah watched the target drop immediately. "Hit," Ramirez confirmed through his spotting scope. "Center mass. Time from target appearance to engagement was 43 seconds. The exercise continued with Sarah simulating her escape from the position, while instructors acting as enemy forces attempted to locate and eliminate her. This phase tested her fieldcraft skills and ability to remain calm under pressure while carrying the heavy Barrett rifle across difficult terrain. Sarah successfully evaded the pursuing forces and reached her designated extraction point within the allotted time frame. She had completed every aspect of the exercise successfully, demonstrating proficiency in long-range precision shooting, tactical planning, fieldcraft, and operational execution. That evening, the instructors conducted a detailed debrief of Sarah's performance. Their feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with particular praise for her adaptability and consistent performance under pressure. "Chen, you've demonstrated abilities that we rarely see even among experienced special operations personnel," Harrison told her. "Your shooting skills are exceptional, but more importantly, you have the mental toughness and tactical awareness necessary for the most demanding missions." Sergeant Major Thompson nodded in agreement. "Your performance on the final exercise was flawless. You handled every aspect of the mission profile with the competence of someone with years of operational experience." Captain Williams consulted his notes before speaking. "We're recommending you for immediate advancement to an accelerated training program that will bypass some of the preliminary phases of Scout Sniper School. You've already demonstrated proficiency in skills that most candidates take months to develop." Sarah felt a surge of pride and accomplishment, but she also recognized the significance of what was being offered. Accelerated advancement meant increased responsibility and higher expectations. It also meant that her performance would be scrutinized even more carefully than she had originally anticipated. "There's one more thing," Harrison said, his expression becoming more serious. "The training you've received here qualifies you for immediate deployment with special operations units if the need arises. Your name will be added to a classified roster of personnel, who can be called upon for specialized missions on short notice. The implications of Harrison's statement were clear. Sarah was being recruited for operations that went far beyond conventional Marine Corps duties. She would potentially be asked to participate in classified missions alongside the most elite units in the military. As Sarah prepared to return to Camp Lejeune the next morning, she reflected on how dramatically her career had changed in just 4 days. She had arrived as a skilled marksman preparing for Scout Sniper School. She was leaving as someone who had been evaluated and approved for the most demanding missions the military conducted. The Barrett rifle that had initially seemed intimidating now felt manageable, even familiar. More importantly, she had discovered that her abilities extended far beyond what she had previously understood. The combination of precision shooting, tactical planning, and operational execution came naturally to her in ways that surprised even experienced special operations instructors. Chief Harrison approached Sarah as she loaded her gear into the vehicle for the return trip. "Chen, I want you to remember something important. The skills you've learned here are tools, and like any tools, they're only as good as the person using them. Use them wisely, and always remember the weight of responsibility that comes with these capabilities." Sarah nodded, understanding that Harrison was speaking about more than just marksmanship techniques. The training she had received represented access to capabilities that could have life-and-death consequences in operational environments. "Chief, I want to thank you for this opportunity. It's changed my entire perspective on what's possible." "You earned it, Chen. Your performance here speaks for itself. Now go show those Scout Sniper instructors what real shooting looks like." 3 weeks after returning to Camp Lejeune, Sarah was going through her morning routine on the firing range when her phone buzzed with an encrypted message that would change everything. The text was brief and used coded language that she had been taught to recognize during her time at the classified training facility. "Package delivery required. Report to Building 247 immediately." Sarah secured her weapon and gear quickly, her pulse quickening as she realized this was the call that Chief Harrison had warned her about. Building 247 was the base's Special Operations Liaison Office, a nondescript structure that handled coordination between Marine Corps units and other military organizations. Inside, she found Harrison waiting with 2 other men she didn't recognize. Both wore civilian clothes but carried themselves with the unmistakable bearing of Special Operations personnel. The atmosphere in the room was tense and focused, indicating that whatever was happening was both urgent and serious. "Chen, I need to brief you on a developing situation," Harrison began without preamble. 6 hours ago, a Marine reconnaissance team was ambushed in Syria while conducting a classified operation. 3 Marines are wounded and pinned down in hostile territory, unable to extract due to enemy sniper fire from an elevated position approximately 1,900 meters from their location. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. "How can I help, Chief?" One of the other men stepped forward. "I'm Colonel Martinez from JSOC. Our intelligence indicates the enemy sniper is using a position that's beyond the effective range of the weapons available to our rescue teams. We need someone who can engage and neutralize the threat at extreme range to allow the extraction to proceed." Harrison activated a large monitor displaying satellite imagery of the area in question. "The target location is here, on a mountain ridge overlooking the valley where our Marines are trapped. The distance from the closest safe approach position to the enemy sniper is 1,847 meters. Weather conditions are challenging, with variable winds and temperature gradients." Sarah studied the imagery carefully, noting the terrain features and potential shooting positions. "What's the timeline for the mission?" "You'll be inserted with a SEAL team in 4 hours," Colonel Martinez replied. "The wounded Marines can't hold their position much longer, and enemy reinforcements are moving toward their location. This is our only window of opportunity." The weight of responsibility settled heavily on Sarah's shoulders. 3 Marines' lives depended on her ability to make an extremely difficult shot under combat conditions. Everything she had learned during her intensive training was about to be tested in the most serious way possible. "I'll need the Barrett system I trained on," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what was being asked of her. "And I'll want to verify my ballistic data for those specific conditions." Harrison nodded. "Already arranged. My personal Barrett is being loaded onto the aircraft now, along with match-grade ammunition and all the support equipment you'll need." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Sarah reviewed detailed intelligence reports on the target area, studied weather forecasts and ballistic calculations, and received briefings on the rescue operation's overall plan. She also spent time with the Barrett rifle, refamiliarizing herself with its controls and conducting function checks to ensure everything was working perfectly. The SEAL team she would be deploying with was led by Lieutenant Commander Jackson, a veteran of multiple combat deployments who had specifically requested Sarah for the mission based on Harrison's recommendation. Jackson's team had already studied the tactical situation and developed detailed plans for inserting Sarah into an effective shooting position. "Staff Sergeant, I've read your training reports from the facility," Jackson told her during the pre-mission briefing. "Based on what I've seen, you're exactly what we need for this situation. My team will get you into position and provide security while you engage the target. Once the threat is eliminated, we'll extract immediately." The flight to the target area took 3 hours aboard a specialized helicopter configured for special operations missions. During the flight, Sarah continued studying the terrain and reviewing her shooting data, making final calculations for the shot she would have to make. The other team members prepared their equipment and reviewed contingency plans in the methodical way of professionals who had done this many times before. As they approached the target area, Sarah could see the terrain that she had studied in satellite images. The mountains were rugged and barren, offering little cover but providing clear fields of fire across long distances. The enemy sniper had chosen his position well, with excellent visibility of the valley where the Marine reconnaissance team was trapped. The helicopter insertion was executed flawlessly, with the SEAL team and Sarah fast roping onto a ridge line approximately 2 kilometers from the target area. From there, they would have to move on foot to reach the shooting position that had been identified through careful analysis of the terrain and ballistic requirements. The approach took 90 minutes, moving carefully across broken ground while avoiding detection by enemy forces. Sarah carried the Barrett rifle along with her personal equipment, the weapon's weight adding significant difficulty to the movement, but remaining manageable thanks to her intensive physical conditioning. The shooting position was located behind a cluster of rocks that provided both concealment and a stable platform for the rifle. From this location, Sarah had a clear view of the enemy sniper position across the valley, though the target itself was barely visible even through high-powered optics. Lieutenant Commander Jackson set up a spotting position 20 meters to Sarah's left, using advanced observation equipment to identify the target and call corrections if necessary. The other team members established security positions to protect against enemy forces that might attempt to interfere with the mission. "I have visual on the target location," Jackson reported through their communication system. "Enemy sniper is in a prepared position behind a low wall. Range is 1,847 meters as calculated. Wind is variable, approximately 8 to 12 knots from the southwest." Sarah set up the Barrett carefully, using every technique she had learned during her training. The rifle's bipod was adjusted for the exact angle required, and she positioned herself to achieve perfect bone support and natural point of aim. The scope was set for the calculated range, and she made preliminary adjustments for the wind conditions. Through her scope, Sarah could barely make out the enemy position. At nearly 1,850 meters, even with maximum magnification, the target appeared as little more than a dark shape behind the defensive wall. She would have to time her shot perfectly to coincide with any movement that exposed the enemy sniper. "Target is firing at our Marines," Jackson reported urgently. "I can see muzzle flash from his position." Sarah watched through her scope as tiny flashes appeared from the enemy position, each flash representing a shot fired at the trapped Marines. She knew that every second of delay increased the risk to the men she was trying to save. "I need him to expose himself more," Sarah said calmly, her voice showing no trace of the stress she was feeling. "Can you get our guys to return fire and make him shift position?" Jackson relayed Sarah's request through the communications network, and within minutes, the Marines in the valley began directing suppressive fire toward the enemy sniper position. As expected, the enemy fighter moved to a different location within his prepared position to avoid the incoming fire. The movement was exactly what Sarah needed. For approximately 3 seconds, the enemy sniper was clearly visible through her scope as he moved between covered positions. Sarah had been tracking him through her scope, and when he appeared, she was ready. Her pre-shot routine was automatic after thousands of hours of practice. Natural point of aim, breathing control, sight alignment, and gradual pressure on the trigger. The Barrett fired with its characteristic thunderous report, and Sarah maintained her sight picture to observe the bullet's impact. Through her scope, Sarah watched the enemy sniper collapse immediately upon impact. There was no movement from the position afterward, and the enemy fire directed at the trapped Marines ceased instantly. "Target down," Jackson confirmed through his spotting scope. "Clean hit. Enemy sniper is neutralized." The rescue operation proceeded immediately, with helicopter extraction teams moving in to recover the wounded Marines. Sarah and the SEAL team remained in position to provide overwatch until the extraction was complete, ensuring that no additional threats could interfere with the rescue. Within 40 minutes, all 3 wounded Marines had been successfully extracted from the valley and were en route to medical treatment. The mission was declared a complete success, with no additional casualties among friendly forces. During the extraction flight, Lieutenant Commander Jackson approached Sarah with obvious respect and gratitude. "Staff Sergeant, that was one of the most impressive shots I've ever witnessed. You just saved 3 Marines' lives with that rifle work." Sarah nodded, still processing the magnitude of what had just occurred. She had successfully engaged and neutralized an enemy target at a range that pushed the absolute limits of precision shooting under combat conditions with lives hanging in the balance. Everything she had learned during her intensive training had come together in that single, crucial moment. Back at Camp Lejeune, the mission's success generated significant attention within the special operations community. Word spread quickly that a Marine staff sergeant had made a confirmed kill at 1,847 meters under combat conditions, saving the lives of 3 trapped Marines. The shot was one of the longest confirmed sniper kills in recent military history. Chief Harrison met Sarah upon her return, his usual stoic demeanor showing unmistakable pride. "Chen, that shot you made is going to become legendary. But more importantly, you proved that all the training and preparation was worthwhile. You performed exactly as we knew you would." Colonel Martinez was equally impressed. "Staff Sergeant Chen, your performance on this mission has been noted at the highest levels of command. You've demonstrated capabilities that make you invaluable for future operations." The success of the mission led to immediate changes in Sarah's career trajectory. Her scheduled entry into Scout Sniper School was expedited, and she was granted advanced placement based on her proven combat performance. More significantly, she was officially assigned to a classified program that would allow her to deploy with special operations units on short notice. The Barrett rifle that had initially seemed so intimidating had become her signature weapon. Chief Harrison arranged for Sarah to receive her own Barrett system, customized to her specifications and maintained to the highest standards. The weapon that had once belonged exclusively to elite special operations units was now in the hands of a Marine Corps staff sergeant who had proven she could use it more effectively than almost anyone. Word of Sarah's achievement spread throughout the military sniper community, earning her recognition as one of the most capable long-range marksmen in the armed forces. Requests for her participation in training programs and operational missions came from various special operations units, each recognizing the unique capabilities she had demonstrated. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, who had originally recommended Sarah to Chief Harrison, was not surprised by her success. "I knew Chen was special from the first time I watched her shoot," he told anyone who would listen. "What she did in Syria just proved what those of us who know her have understood all along." The 3 Marines whose lives Sarah had saved made a point of meeting her personally after their recovery. Lance Corporal Davis, the team's radio operator, spoke for all of them when he said, "Staff Sergeant, we know what you did for us out there. We'll never forget that you put yourself in danger to get us home." For Sarah, the mission represented both a culmination of her training and the beginning of a new phase in her military career. She had proven to herself and others that she could perform under the most demanding circumstances, using skills that few people possessed to protect the lives of fellow Marines. The reputation she had earned opened doors to opportunities that would have been unimaginable just months earlier. Elite units that had never considered working with Marine Corps personnel were now requesting her support for their most challenging missions. Her unique combination of precision shooting ability, tactical awareness, and proven combat performance made her invaluable for operations requiring extreme-range precision fire. As Sarah returned to her daily routine at Camp Lejeune, she carried with her the knowledge that she had found her true calling. The path that had begun with her grandfather teaching her to shoot prairie dogs in Montana had led to becoming one of the military's most capable precision marksmen, trusted with missions that could determine whether fellow service members lived or died. The Barrett rifle that Chief Harrison had handed to her during training had become more than just a weapon. It was a tool that allowed her to protect others and serve her country in ways that few people ever could. Every time she picked up that rifle, Sarah remembered the weight of responsibility that came with such capabilities and the trust that had been placed in her by those who had recognized her potential. The young Marine who had once struggled to prove herself worthy of Scout Sniper School had become someone whose abilities were sought after by the most elite units in the military. Her journey from a small-town girl in Montana to one of the most respected precision marksmen in the armed forces was complete, but Sarah knew it was really just the beginning of a career dedicated to excellence and service to others. Chief Harrison's words echoed in her mind as she prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. Use these capabilities wisely and always remember the weight of responsibility that comes with them. Sarah understood that every shot she fired, every mission she undertook, and every decision she made would reflect not only on herself, but on all those who had invested in her training and trusted her with such significant responsibilities. The story of how a Navy SEAL had handed over his personal Barrett50 and stepped back to let a Marine staff sergeant take the shot had already become part of military legend. But for Sarah Chen, it was simply the moment when everything she had learned and trained for came together to save the lives of 3 fellow Marines who needed her skills to survive.